Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the first webinar on Research Horizons in 21st Century, organized by Center for Peace and Global Studies, Islamabad. My name is Sajjad Ahmad Siddiqui, and I'm Assistant Professor of Computer Science at Rifa International University, Islamabad. On behalf of our chairman and the whole team, I thank you all for accepting our invitation, taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us here today. Today's seminar is one of our first attempts to reach out to the academic community. The purpose of today's webinar is first to give you the introduction to our newly established center, our aims and our objectives, and also to promote the kind of research and other academic activities that we wish to conduct in future. Our agenda today is quite simple. We'll start with an introduction to our center that will be given by our Secretary General, Dr. Atiq Zafar. This will be followed by the address of our chairman, Dr. Anis Ahmed, which will take about 30 minutes. At the end, there will be an interactive question and answer session with all of you, where our chairman will be answering your queries. We want to have as many questions as possible, so you should keep your questions ready. We shall also send you an attendance form in the chat box in which you can give your feedback also. Without further delay, I would like to invite the Secretary General, Center for Peace and Global Studies, Dr. Atiq Zafar, for a brief introduction of the center. Let me introduce Dr. Atiq Zafar to you. Dr. Atiq Zafar, a well-known scholar in the field of Islamic economics and finance, recently joined Rifa International University as Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities. In the past, he has served as at the International Institute of Islamic Economics, International Islamic University, Islamabad, as faculty member, where he has been a chairman, School of Economics, a chairman, School of Islamic Banking, and the Director General of the Institute. He did his PhD in the field of economics from the International Islamic University, Islamabad, and his MS in economics from University of Waterloo, Canada. He is the author of a book titled Fundamentals of Islamic Economics and Finance, which is being used as a textbook in many Muslim countries, including Pakistan. Dr. Atiq Zafar.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I welcome all the participants of the seminar on behalf of Center for Peace and Global Studies. I would like to start the formal proceeding just reciting few verses from the Holy Quran. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Sadaqallahul Azim. Dear brothers and sisters, this Center for Peace and Global Studies was established 3 years back in 2018. This was initiative of renowned scholar and social scientist Dr. Anis Ahmed. The need was felt that a lot of research work is being done in different disciplines in Pakistan and in other countries, but this research is not much focused. So to achieve this target that our research should be beneficial for the Ummah and for the Pakistan specifically, Dr. Anis Ahmed initiated the idea, and many people sat together and discussed that we should do something for guiding our young research scholars that in what areas they can conduct their research. And this center was established and registered as a trust in Islamabad. And we invited scholars from various universities located in Islamabad, initially, and with their cooperation, a team was built. This Center for Peace and Global Studies is a private and non-profit academic, cultural, and educational institution which is concerned with general issues of peace and Islamic thought. And this is an intellectual forum working on educational, academic, and societal issues from an Islamic perspective. So this is the main purpose of establishing this institution. Please, next slide. Next slide, please, Dr. Sajjad. So these are the main objectives of the Center for Peace and Global Studies: to serve as a think tank in the field of Islamic thought, education, culture, and society, formulate a comprehensive Islamic vision and methodology that will help scholars in their critical analysis of contemporary knowledge, develop an appropriate methodology for understanding and application of the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, develop an appropriate methodology for dealing with Islamic legacy and contemporary knowledge in order to draw the experiences of both past and present, to build a better future for Ummah and humanity at large, develop holistic strategies for dealing with the contemporary intellectual, socio-economic, educational, environmental, and ethical challenges faced by Pakistan and the world in general. So these were the objectives which we put before us, and the methodology to achieve these objectives is directing research and studies to develop Islamic thought, supporting researchers and scholars in universities and research centers, and publishing selected scholarly, cultural, and intellectual works, mainly in English and Urdu languages. Holding of specialized scholarly, intellectual, and cultural conferences, seminars, and study groups. Teacher development, curriculum review, and development of teaching material with an ethical approach. So this is the methodology, and this center from its very start tried to establish links and collaborations with other similar research organizations and educational institutions. So the center started its activities in 2019, and Alhamdulillah, we successfully held 2 international seminars with collaboration of International Islamic University Maldives and International Islamic University Malaysia in these countries. We also held some seminars in Islamabad. We are in process of reprinting some selected books of IIIT, International Islamic Institute of Islamic Thought, with their permission to be used in Pakistan. So these were our activities, but start of COVID-19 in 2020 stopped most of these activities, but now we thought to again take a new start, and this seminar is, you can say, an initial step towards the start of activities. We hope that with the help and support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we'll be able to do some meaningful job and meaningful objective to serve humanity, Ummah, and Pakistan specifically. With these words, I would like to close my introduction of the center, because we are here to listen the chairman of the center, Dr. Anis Ahmed, and now I would like Dr. Sajjad to invite Dr. Anis Ahmed for his valuable lecture. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Atiq Zafar, the Secretary General, Center for Peace and Global Studies, was with us, giving us the introduction to the center. Just to remind you that we shall have a quick question and answer session at the end. However, during the seminar, if you have any questions, you can write them down in the chat box and I can read it out to our speaker. Or if you would like to ask question yourself, we shall allow you to unmute yourself at the end and ask questions personally. Now, I would like to invite the Chairman, Center for Peace and Global Studies, Dr. Anis Ahmed, to speak on the topic of research horizons in 21st century. Let me briefly introduce Dr. Anis Ahmed to you. Dr. Anis Ahmed, an outstanding scholar of Islam, is currently the Vice Chancellor of Rifa International University. In the past, he was the founding Dean, Faculty of Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences, International Islamic University, Malaysia, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences, founding Dean, Faculty of Usuluddin, and Director General Dawa Academy of the International Islamic University. He was awarded University Fellowship by University Science Malaysia. He also served as Vice President, International Islamic University, Islamabad. He is Editor-in-Chief of Islam and the West, a scholarly journal published from Islamabad. He is the author of several books and more than 90 research papers on socio-political and educational issues. He has contributed articles in the Oxford Encyclopedia of Islamic World, New York and London, Encyclopedia of Islamic Economics, London, UK, Encyclopedia of Islam, Turkey, and the Muslim World Book Reviewer, Leicester, UK. Professor Anis Ahmed.
Thank you very much. A'udhu billahi min shaitanir rajim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala khatimil anbiya. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. I'm thankful to my colleague Dr. Atiq Zafar, Dr. Sajjad, and their team of Hassan Malik and Mujib Bhatti for arranging this program. I'm addressing you in English, although I'm a strong supporter of Urdu medium of instruction. But since we have a number of guests joining in this program from overseas, we had no choice but to have this program arranged in English. So pardon me for that. The topic I will address is research horizons in 21st century. First and foremost, we know very well that we're living in an age of IT and EI, an age of technology where information has become central focus of academia. Universities are understood as seats of learning which produce knowledge, and therefore innovative ideas and better solutions of technological and social problems are to be discovered by them. Their main task is to produce knowledge leaders. Next, please. The globalization of economy and information technology has resulted into a revolutionary change in educational strategies in the developing world. Excellence in technology has become a major concern of education institutions. It has become a key factor in economic development, knowledge transfer, poverty alleviation, healthcare, and political opinion making. Next, please. The technology impact on society has been remarkable. Man's food habits, interpersonal communication, and ways of socialization have become dependent on technology. It appears that man's dependence on technology has reached a point where human behavior is being adjusted and modified in view of demands of modern technology. Next, please. Universities, consequently, are becoming hotbeds of technological inventions. Their academic ranking has been linked with the number of patents and linkage with industry. ORICs are organized. Development of metropolitan regions is associated with their role in transfer of technology. An example is from North America, where the development of Silicon Valley in California and the great Boston in Massachusetts are linked directly with technological development. Next, please. One important development role of universities is the enhancement of human capital according to market needs and national and international levels, which means that even human personality and development has been made subservient to demand of the market where technology is dominant. Trained and skilled human resources become a major source of national earnings and improvement of the quality of life. Next, please. Understanding unrestricted hegemony of technology, however, has marginalized and restricted role of ethical values mostly to personal life. Therefore, we hear people saying, you may be a follower of one faith or the other, but that's your personal matter. You may have your standards of good, which you like, and I can have my own. Therefore, ethics, morality, and religion all have been confined to a personal realm. Man's economic, social, and cultural progress has been directly related with technological and industrial development with a capitalist worldview. Therefore, people talk about development of countries linked directly with what kind of technology they are pursuing and where they stand in their development. Next, please. Economic development and technological excellence is supposed to increase level of tolerance. But what we find is that there is global terrorism. Self-satisfaction is supposed to be achieved. But what we find is that there is greed all over the world. Economic development should bring desire for coexistence. But actually what's happening is a unipolarism, global hegemony, economic colonialism, acceptance of diversity of ideas and relative cultures claimed by them should bring some different results. But fact is that no one can wear even headscarf in a country which claims to be technologically very advanced. And similarly, acceptance of religious identity is supposed to be there, but unfortunately, we are suffering under a cultural and educational colonialism at global level. Next, please. Globalization of education, which is a very beautiful word, means that those standards which are developed in Europe or North America have to be globally accepted, rather imposed. Therefore, besides its benefits, it has definitely introduced new ideas to people, but the fact of the matter is that the whole of developing world particularly has become very much colonized by ideas, by the resources, and by the literature that's coming out from the centers of research and development. In the name of quality of education, QA, QEC, and ISO certification, foreign values have become benchmark for evaluation and assessment of educational system, because certification is done based on those values on which these standards have been developed. These are not standards based on the countries where they are being applied. Next, please. The question we need to ask is, are European and US standards of education the ultimate question of quality? Do these standards take into consideration the global religious and ethical values of Islam and other religions? Are empirical measurements an adequate way to judge and the moral and ethical conduct of the people and the end product universities are supposed to produce as an higher learning? Next, please. Can imported benchmarks based on a capitalist mindset help in making the end product of our universities upright, selfless, compassionate, loving, peaceful, dutiful, and ethically committed persons who serve and respect their parents, family members, teachers, society, and state? While technical education may produce best technicians and inventors, can it also produce social engineers? Next, please. Islamic education, on the other hand, tries to build social engineers with a mission and vision to create responsible, respectful, proactive, creative, critical, and caring scientists, social workers, and members of a human society. Next, please. The myth that religion creates closed minds, hates fundamental, uh, hate fundamentalists and extremists may be true in case of some world religions, but has no relevance in case of Islam. Islam provides openness of mind, freedom, and liberty. Therefore, the key role of universities should be a holistic development of human personality, society, and state, and not just confined to technological development. Technological development should serve the objectives of society, its values and ideals of these people. Ultimacy of divine values and code of life should prevail over the ultimacy of technology, which remains a purely capitalistic term and norm. Next, please. A holistic development can only take place when university education gives equal importance to human, spiritual, and ethical and moral needs of man and society. The ideal personality in the Islamic paradigm is the most compassionate, humble, dignified, self-sacrificing, loving, dynamic, moderate, and tolerant person human history has ever witnessed and produced, which means the final message, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The next, please. The divine guidance provided by the Quran and the Prophetic Sunnah are not restricted to Muslims. These are global ethical values commanded, given the commands and teachings of the Quran, and they are equally relevant and suitable and applicable and beneficial to the rest of mankind. Therefore, in this month of Ramadan, the Quran was sent guidance which was not confined to Muslims, but this was guidance for the whole of mankind. Therefore, we must dispel the confusion. People think Islam is for Muslims. People think Quran is for Muslims. People think Prophet is for Muslims. Although the Prophet has been called messenger and guide kafatan linnas, the Quran has been called for the whole of humanity. Therefore, the principles and moralities contained in Prophetic Sunnah as well as the Quran are not specific to Muslims. These are for global application because these are providing universal solutions to problems. Next, please. Without going into any details, I will refer to only three prominent scientists from the Muslim history. Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn Zakaria al-Razi. He was born in Ray near modern Tehran. Known for his contribution to medical sciences, he also made outstanding contribution in mathematics, philosophy, and astronomy. He studied medicine under Hunayn ibn Ishaq, well-known physicist, who was official physician. Al-Razi wrote 200 books. Next, please. Half of them on medicine, dealing with gynecology, obstetrics, ophthalmology, and common disease. He also wrote an exceptional research work on children's disease, which gave him the title Father of Pediatrics. His major work, Kitab al-Hawi, is 20-volume in a medical encyclopedia, and its Latin translation was completed in 1279 under the title. It was reprinted in many times. He also wrote on psychological aspects of medicine. Another, next please, great recognized physician and philosopher was Abu Ali al-Hasan ibn Sina, known as Avicenna, second teacher, that is second to Aristotle. As a student, Ibn Sina surpassed his teachers. He studies almost every book in the Imperial Library of Bukhara. He started writing when he was 21, averaging about 50 pages a day, and produced 278 books. His eminence in medical science rests on Al-Qanun fil Tib. He described in detail 760 drugs to be used in treatment of different diseases. Next, please. Third major physician that we have is Abul Qasim al-Zahrawi in Spain. He was a physician of Abdurrahman Darula. His contribution to surgery were outstanding. His major contribution included cauterization of wounds and crushing of stones into bladder. He also wrote on paralysis and fractures and treatment of deformities of the mouth and dental arches. He wrote on pharmaceutical preparations driven from plants, minerals, and so on and so forth. As an outstanding physician in Cordova, he contributed a tasrif, a compendium of 30 volumes based on medical data. Next, please. In view of what has been said, let's try to look into very briefly what are the research challenges. This brief quick review of scientific achievements of our elders indicates that they pioneered interdisciplinary research. They were physician, philosopher, they were physicists, they were ophthalmologists. At the same time, they knew very well principles of fiqh and whatever they had contemporary sciences. Second, they based their views on medical data and their findings were evidence-based. We talk nowadays a lot about evidence-based research, but it was they who pioneered it. So first conceptual challenge that I see is, which emerged with the ideas of positivism of Auguste Comte, a French philosopher. He looked on history from three perspectives: an age of theological research, which he meant was the age of religion; the age of metaphysical research, which he meant was philosophical research. But then the last stage in which he thought we have entered, and that was of positive age, positivism, which means empirical research. And unfortunately or fortunately, this last stage continues till today. The positivist approach has led to very clearly empiricism as the main force behind modern research, which serves all purposes of materialism. So empiricism, materialism, and positivism has given birth to modern sciences in applied as well as social sciences. All applied sciences, including medical, health science, economics, law, physics, engineering, are founded on positivist assumptions of what you can measure and feel and find out in your clinical research. Islam strongly disagrees at philosophical level with this whole understanding. It does not believe that history can be confined in just three stages of theology, philosophy, and positivism, nor it believes that empirical research alone can provide guidance and can lead to constructive results. Next, please. The first challenge we face is how to develop applied and social sciences on certain universal ethical principles of Islam. Again, may I add a few words about that? When I say universal ethical principles of Islam, I'm referring to the teachings of the Quran and Sunnah, which, as I said earlier, are not a monopoly of Muslims. They are not limited to Muslims, but both are there for the whole of mankind. Therefore, if the Quran says you must stand for truth, speak truth, convey truth, then it is not confined to Muslims. We cannot say that our fellow Christians in Pakistan or in North America or anywhere else are fully free to use as much false statement as possible. Only Muslims should speak truth. When the Quran tells us you must fulfill your promises of bil uqud and your ahad should be questioned, then does it mean that a Muslim makes a contract, a covenant, an agreement? He should be very faithful about it. But if a Jew or Christian or atheist makes a contract, he should not worry at all about fulfilling it. If the Quran says that you must guard your chastity and be loyal to your family, then does it mean that only a Muslim should be faithful to his wife and to his parents, but a non-Muslim living in Pakistan or anywhere else has full liberty to use all kind of abusive language, physical force against his wife and parents and others? What does that mean? Is very simple. That every principle given by the Quran and Sunnah has universal applicability. But unfortunately, Muslims themselves, because of lack of knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah, have assumed a position that Sharia is for Muslims. No, objectives of Sharia are global. And whatever Sharia prescribes has great relevance for Muslims and non-Muslims at the same time. Therefore, we need to clarify basic assumptions, basic concepts, and how universal Islamic ethical values, after removing these doubts, can be the foundation of a new knowledge, a new physics, a new literature, a new economics, a new social science. Second, how to institutionalize the Islamic divine values in medical, educational, engineering, and other areas. Which means we must have institutions, not just individuals. I am sure throughout our history there have been hundreds of individuals, a large number of people who believe that Islam has given us most valuable principles and guidance. But do we have 10 dozen, 5 dozen, 2 dozen, 1 dozen institutions where medical science is taught only from Islamic perspective? Does not mean begin with Bismillah, then teach Gray's book of anatomy. No, teaching anatomy as Allah's gift. Human body is a gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Its whole structure and mechanism is based on a extremely well thought plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our system of blood circulation, our system of nervous responses, everything is not a matter of a random and accidental development. Therefore, human anatomy, human psychology, human economy, everything to be restructured institutionally, not individually. Some teachers may have the habit of going to the classroom or laboratory and say a few good words about Islam and ethics. Some of people begin with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and then they say that this morning we had a good shower, some rain came in very hot climate, it's Allah's blessing, and then start his lecture. In other words, he is providing an ethical message along with his professional teaching. But what we want to see is professional teaching has to be done with those values which are universal, which have been given in the Quran and Sunnah, and which has been drawn from them, which we call the maqasid and so on and so forth. Thirdly, how to create an awareness about central role of Islamic ethical principles. I have been hearing since my childhood that religion is a personal matter. I have been told in my teaching career in America, in China, in Malaysia, in many parts of the world, that every country has its own ethical standards. So a French or an American or a South African will have variety of ethical standards. And all that has become part of our memory. Islam claims that whether you are in South Africa or North America or anywhere else, you have to speak truth. You have to fulfill your trust. You have to be kind. It does not say blacks should be kind to blacks and rude to whites, while the so-called ethnocentrism or racism, which is the basis of many societies in the West, tells you that white gene is more intelligent and black are stupid, quote unquote. Therefore, the words used are not just black, but nigger. Very much racist language, insulting language, but that is done in academic writings as well as in popular discussions. Islam rejects all these concepts and tells us whether someone is white or black or yellow, someone comes from Africa or Asia or America, so long the person is honest, truthful, this person unknowingly is following Islam, because Islamic values are universal. They are part of human heritage, because in every corner of the world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at one time or the other sent messengers with one and same message. Their message was reject racism, reject linguistic nationalism, reject territorial nationalism, and become only servants of Allah. Allah is not God of blacks or whites or Asians or certain ethnic groups. He is the nourisher of everyone, to the extent that in a dialogue with one of his well-known prophets and a very senior prophet, he says that the prophet requests that please take care of the needs of the followers of this faith. The answer comes, I will take care of their needs, but also take care of the needs of those who deny it. Because I am all compassion, all love, all care, all concern for human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not discriminate even when someone is rebellious and provides him rain and water and food and everything. The reason is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never frustrates or loses hope. He is telling us to be optimistic, and therefore, based on optimism, he provides everyone a chance, even when he is rebelling against him, to come back to Allah. Therefore, he does not stop his rahmah to even those who are rebellious. That was besides the point. The point here was, how do we create awareness about role of Islamic ethical principles for all human beings? And then how to develop a networking among Muslim practitioners, educationists, researchers, scholars, and persuade them to develop interdisciplinary research. The examples I gave you of 3 scholars, and there are hundreds of those, were that on the one hand, they excel and are recognized in their work in jurisprudence, Shaykh Ibn Rushd. At the same time, in jurisprudence, At the same time, in diplomacy, one person who is doing many things, Ibn Khaldun, many others, and their writings, Sheikh Ghazali, Muhammad al-Ghazali, and many others. Anyone we think was not just a man of one discipline, but they were looking for interdisciplinary approach. It's this approach alone that creates a concept of universal knowledge, holistic knowledge. Otherwise, a person who from grade 1 till PhD has done research only on numericals, may those be in computer science, may those be in mathematics, may those be elsewhere. Can this person have an idea about what is society, what are different societies, human personality, human like and dislike, why it happens, which means he has least idea about human psychology, but best idea about how to research on numericals. Now, can that be holistic knowledge? Islam stands for holistic knowledge and therefore advocates an approach of interdisciplinary methodology. This is an area where we as center are concerned. We believe that the research horizons of 21st century are not confined to excellence in technology. That must be continued. We are not against technology, but we are against that technology which reduces a human being to a robot. If human beings are replaced by robots and by artificial intelligence, then you will have a monstrous society instead of a human society. Therefore, our concern is how we can, first of all, understand the universal Islamic ethical values, how we can look on the existing resource of knowledge and find out where sociology, psychology, history, philosophy, mathematics, engineering, and so on and so forth are knowingly or unknowingly following the positivist methodology of empiricism, how we disengage with that. At the same time, we use empirical evidence. Islam is not against that. Islam wants its believers to look into universe around them, understand ecology, and make use of it, but does not want human beings to become subservient to technology or environment. Therefore, the Quran says, we have conquered everything for you, to cooperate with you, make use of that, do research in that, and come up with your conclusions. But those conclusions should lead ultimately to a holistic concept of life and research. So the center is very much concerned about social scientists, even in applied sciences, who are keen to come forward and participate in research production. We would like to have such discussions more frequently held. We would like to have in forums established on major Pakistani cities where scholars can get together on monthly basis or twice or bi-monthly or whatever is convenient for them, and at the same time come up with the research productions with a Islamic perspective. For that, we are prepared to provide as much assistance as possible. As in the beginning, the General Secretary Sahib mentioned, Dr. Atiq mentioned that the center is more than prepared to collaborate and to assist in research production by way of research grants. We want to have a series of textbooks developed by researchers based on Islamic principles. So all of you who are participating in this webinar in Pakistan or outside Pakistan are most welcome to send your proposals for research or for writing textbooks or other areas, and Center will like to consider those. our main concern is to develop this networking in the whole region and benefit from the talent available. We believe there are hundreds and thousands of scholars who are looking for a forum where they could utilize their potential, their capacities, and contribute their share in the overall production of knowledge. So this is very briefly how I look on it, and I could not cover many other areas of contemporary research challenges, which will be inshallah later on discussed in our webinars, which the center plans to hold in near future inshallah. May Allah bless you all, and I again thank our organizers, Dr. Sajad, Dr. Atiq and his team, and hope that whatever I have shared with you will stimulate some questions, and with your questions we can together understand further dimensions of what I have said. May Allah bless you all. Wa khairan bil alamin. Any questions, please?
Thank you very much. Professor Anis Ahmed was talking about research horizons in 21st century. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand. There is a button which says raise hand. You can click on it and I will ask you to unmute. Or if you would like to write your question in the chat window, you can also do that. Yes, Ms. Sharmeen, could you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, I have two questions. My first question is that, first of all, I want to applaud. It was a very comprehensive and educative seminar. My question is that we always talk about the researchers or the scholars of Islam in who existed like centuries ago. I would certainly be very interested, and we are all interested to know who are the current scholars and what contributions they are giving to the Islamic world and to the science in the current world. Secondly, what are the prospects of such research to be published in good journals, because the purpose of all research is to convey our message to the rest of the world, and journals are the only platform for us to extend our thoughts and our knowledge to the world. So what are the prospects for that? So sir, these are the questions that I had for you. Thank you.
Jazakallah. For your first question, I'm glad you raised it. The fact of the matter is that Islamic scholarship has never stopped. It has continued. The only problem was that there was a time when it was not just individuals, it was the whole society and state which encouraged. Therefore, great observatories were built with the help of not just the individual, but with society and state. If you travel into Central Asian republics, you will find that Ulugh Beg near Tashkent has a beautiful observatory where you have huge telescopes. You have many equipments which he invented and used for his studies. And all that was a result of joint effort. The whole community, society and state was involved in that. Similarly, you find that in same area, a very huge madrasa, not just what we have in Pakistan, but really like a university. And there, I visited that and I was told that it was the effort of not an educationist, but a very simple butcher who had a shop of butchery. And he said that I would like to have a madrasa for the community. I will offer free food from what I butcher, from animals, shorba, soup, and people come and contribute by their labor. And people volunteered, and a huge structure was made, which was center of learning for a long period. So these names are just there. Now, second part of your question, If you look into social sciences particularly, you find that modern age brought persons like Allama Iqbal, not too old, not too back, just 1920s. And there you find him coming and challenging the Western thought after having studied that. The same age you find Allama Muhammad Asad, a very well-known Muslim scholar who contributed in tafsir, in hadith, in political science. You find Abu Ala Maududi, author of about 200 books. You find Dr. Muhammad Nasir in Indonesia, a very famous researcher and scholar. You find in Turkey, Badiuzzzaman Sayyid Nursi, an author of tafsir and so many epistles on Islam. You find Muslim scholars who addressed sociological issues. Even in the most recent time, Ali Shariati from Iran wrote on sociology, although he was influenced by Durkheim. I disagree with that. But anyhow, he produced certain ideas. Many others. You look globally and you find people. The problem is, these are individuals now. They did not get support from state, nor society took them in that manner. Therefore, institutions were lacking. Individuals were there. What we need today is building institutions. What we have started as a center is an institution. And with the availability of cyber facilities, with the virtual learning environment and our online programs, I think it becomes much easier for us to connect people from different parts of the world and learn from them. So there has been a continuity in scholarship, although there has been a lack on the part of society and state. Secondly, when we talk about research papers to be published in journals, then let me share with you, we are collaborating with the IIIT, and this is a international journal published from Washington on social sciences. And similarly, we have a journal which is dedicated to education, and that covers areas where people would like to write, and that too is published from USA. There are others, lots of journals, even some Pakistani research journals, which are listed in international bodies and which are also included in HEC rankings. So there can be many outlets. And we personally, we all of us in the center are concerned about researchers who would like to contribute in textbook development, which in our view is something very, very needed. Textbook development is needed because whatever we are teaching for last over 100 years is a borrowed paradigm, borrowed ideas, borrowed data, borrowed conclusions. And therefore, a revolutionary step has to take place, and that may take a long time. What I am discussing with you is not a matter of just what now we are thinking, but in 1972, we established Association of Muslim Social Scientists of US and Canada. And that was the first effort in North American context where social scientists were invited to work together on various projects. And ultimately, we had this IIIT established in 1980, and then it became a hub of activities. So there are efforts, but very small efforts. And I hope that with your interest and cooperation, these efforts can be made much more fruitful and dynamic. Any other question, please?
Yes, Ms. Sundas Shaheen, could you please unmute? There are questions in the chat window as well. After this, I will read one question from the chat box. Ms. Sundar Shahi, could you please unmute yourself?
Yes, please.
I think Ms. Sundar is having some issues. Asma Gul, could you please unmute yourself?
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Anis.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you? First of all, I need to tell you how much I appreciate you because of your knowledge and because of your wisdom. I have never met you, but I appreciate you a lot.
Thank you very much.
I just want to ask you how we can build a community based on these ethical values. My concerns are like, although these workshops, seminars, and these campaigns are important, but what we can see in the society, there is no true manifestation of these values, these ethics, these traditions, and these campaigns in the society in a practical way. For example, we have long before ago, we have started an anti-corruption campaign, but corruption is increasing day by day.
Yes.
You know,
Jazakallah.
I think you got my question.
Yes.
What I'm trying to
Yes.
ask.
Yes, you're right. Let me give a very brief response to it. I think corruption or any other evils in society are a result of absence of three basic factors. Three basic factors are, first and foremost, family. Second, early education. And third, society. If home has become a place where a father and a mother meet each other after sunset and whole day, they are busy in their individual job activity. And children, if they have any, are left at the mercy of some hired caretakers, then do you expect that this child can ever have, though physical has genes, but can this person show combination of those qualities which his father or mother has? Or this person should reflect the qualities of the caretaker who is providing food and other things during the day. So home is first and foremost the place which provides values of honesty, truth, fearlessness, confidence, respecting people, and so on and so forth. Secondly, the elementary education, where a teacher is not supposed to be a 6-hour servant of a school or 8-hour servant of an institution, but a person who is there to groom, to support, and to strengthen the values the child has learned from his home. Sometimes the child must unlearn some habits from home in the school and go back and contribute in the development of good values in his own home. So the second factor. And third factor is overall society, how society looks at it. Tell me, if you are passing from a place where you hear some noise, and that noise of some music or dancing, people in the street will also go there to listen to the music. But how many times you find a small place, people are talking about how to fight corruption, and people who are walking around go and try to listen? Society plays a role. So if these three factors are addressed, therefore our concern is to address issues dealing with family, with so-called gender differentiation or variance, at the same time dealing with education and with social reconstruction. In that, we believe that major actors are teachers and researchers. Therefore, we are approaching to begin with teachers of all universities of Pakistan and outside. So they come and they look into these issues and come up with their possible resolutions of these aspects. I fully share with you that no campaign of end corruption can be successful if the child in his own home finds that his father is a very low grade employee in government, but has a latest car at the front of his home. From where? The child is told by his father or mother that if someone calls, tell I'm not here while he is there or she is there. Now, if that is the education given, do we expect this person when he is in a school or in university or in a job to be always honest? Therefore, a three-pronged approach, talking about these issues very frankly, based on evidence, not what we think, but based on evidence. At the same time, trying to find out how the Quran resolves it. The Quran came in a society where these things were at their peak. Untruth, immorality, everything at its peak, as we see around ourselves. If that society could be transformed by the Quran and prophetic example, why we cannot do it today? Why? Both sources are living here, available to us in a live form. Therefore, if we just focus on these two sources and try to be as pragmatic, as realist as possible, not living in ivory towers. Unfortunately, our research in the country has been ivory towers. Most of you who come from universities know very well that certain areas where research is done based on mainly quantification methods, the researches are plenty and very well done, and they bring ranking to universities. But how many of those researches are relevant with society here? And how many are dealing with just theoretical constructions? Based on that, they get impact factor publication, and then they come and increase the number of score for their university and for their own selves. But how they are relevant? We have to look for everything realistically. Whatever I'm sharing with you is not something new, but I'm sure you will find that what I have been talking are ground realities. We can change those with our mutual cooperation, unity of thinking, and with depending on the two major sources we have with us, Quran and Sunnah. And I think all these three levels can be corrected very easily.
Thank you. This time I will read question from the chat box. Dr. Sadaf has asked, what delayed the adoption of research and innovation in the Islamic societies?
What?
What
Again?
delayed the adoption
Yeah.
of research and innovation?
First and foremost, a 200-year-old impact of colonization. With all humbleness, I will say that we are still a colonized mind and soul. I wish I could talk in Urdu, but because of our overseas guest, I am compelled to use English. Use of English itself as medium of instruction is a sign of that colonization, but it's beyond that. When you want to write something on sociology, what comes to your mind? Weber, Talcott Parson, Emile Durkheim, Claude Lévi-Strauss, and so on and so forth. You take their quotations and put them in your research paper. When you want to talk about psychology, what comes to your mind? McDougall, You talk about Watson, you talk about Sigmund Freud, you talk about the Carl Jung and B.F. Skinner, and so on and so forth. Without that, no research is supposed to be complete. You must talk about behaviorists and functionalists and so on and so forth. In other words, whichever discipline one belongs, we have been propagating, repeating those ideas which were given by the colonizer. If colonizer said society means these 5 things in every textbook of sociology, if colonizer said law means this in the famous book of Patton on legal philosophy, then we say these are the 5 things which make law. If someone said this is meaning of economic development, then we keep on saying that. Therefore, this colonization intellectually, culturally, societally is one major reason for people who are definitely aware of this aspect, but they have not been able to come up front. They have not been able to speak up very clearly and be recognized in those areas, because there is a club of intellectuals who encourage only those who speak their language. Even today, in many of the journals of social sciences, they would not like to print a quotation from the Quran in Arabic, but they can accept translation in the research paper, because they think that is quote unquote religious and not research work. So this, secondly, I think the educational system that we have, where do we have in any university in this country a forum where you talk about ethical values? We have conferences, seminars, but only dealing with a limited area of professionalism, never trying to address ethical issues. So this is one major problem due to which the Islamic thought has not been very much dominant, yet in past half century that I have seen myself, there has been an emergence of Islamic thought. You have journals, you have books, you have over 200 books published by IIIT, one body alone in Washington, and they are covering a variety of issues. You have other institutions in Malaysia, institutions in the UK, where Muslim scholars have produced dozens of volumes on various areas, and all those need to be properly accessed and utilized for further research. Any other question, please? I cannot hear you.
Dr. Ishfaq Ahmed, could you please unmute yourself?
Thank you so much for providing me the opportunity. I have some scattered thoughts, and I'm trying to, to give them a shape and to ask you a question which is more appropriate and which can make some sense. Thank you, Professor Dr. Anis Ahmed. I will begin, like you have answered some parts of my scattered thought. For example, that how can we promote Islamic values, or that how can we, or the philosopher or the thinker we had, that has been answered. But when we are having a society which is socially and morally corrupt, so how can we convince the West to adopt our values when in Ramadan we have seen that the prices have gone up? It's one portion. And the second portion is which is related to the research organization or the research that we are having. For instance, how can we promote the research when we send an article, or for example, if I'm a new writer, I send an article to a research journal and they reject it. There are two reasons for it. One is that I don't have reference to publish that particular article. The second is if that is a new idea, the reviewer, he is going to reject the idea, and after 6 months he's going to publish his own article by the same similar idea. And as far as the research organization, how can we promote research when let's suppose I'm a researcher and I have developed a think tank, but the team which is I'm having, that is either my close, they are my close students, or those, and most of them, they are hired because of the reference. So these are the problems. And can you please address these scattered thoughts? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The first point you raise is very much realistic, that in Ramadan usually prices are hiked and people are not showing their sacrifice and concern for the people. I think there are certain aspects which are beyond human control due to the size of demand. If the size of demand requires huge supplies and you have shortage of supplies, then we are told in the capitalist economy that price becomes high. And I think in Ramzan, people want to consume more and more. Those who want to buy dates, they don't think one date can help in breaking fast, but they think unless they 3 or 4 dates, they have not done justice. And similarly, if a piece of apple could be enough, they think no, they must have 5 different varieties of fruit put together in a kind of dish, and then they want to enjoy that. And if that is multiplied by the number of people in the country, because we are 97% Muslims, then definitely a bigger demand than supply operates. Nevertheless, there are other factors as well, and I think you will agree with me that if the business community is properly approached and oriented, not all of them are aware of what are the punishments if they are exploiting their consumers. Not all of them know what Islam wants from them. If we do that, and we are not doing it, scholars are confined in their research chambers. How many of the scholars ever go to a marketplace and talk with the hawker and someone in the shop about ethical issues? Never. So I think what you have said is very much correct, but at the same time, media has made us believe that we live in a corrupt society. No, I don't believe in that. I believe we live in a society where there are millions of very good people, but there are a few black sheep which are projected again and again in a way as if the whole nation is corrupt. It's not so. The Quran says, we have made you in ahsana taqweem, in most appropriate manner. Then you fall down because of your own choice. Therefore, it's not just a matter of a blanket statement. I'm a born optimist and I believe that in Pakistan, we have very honest, very fair, very conscientious people. I have personal experience of those in bureaucracy, in judiciary, everywhere. I have found people who will prefer to become OSD, but not submit to temptations around. So nevertheless, what is projected and what is talked about is what you said, that we are a very corrupt society. Please try to study, I'm not justifying, but try to study what is happening in Japan, what's happening in China, what's happening in USA, what's happening in Britain. And you will find that in Japan, in a sequence, 6 prime ministers had to be removed for corruption. You find in America, the former presidents of America have been publicly blamed of bigger kinds of corruption. Some of them had their own chain of hotels globally, and even in their own city, capital city, the food was brought from his own hotel for his president's use and paid by the state. So such corruption which are cheap and small and big ones are there. Yet no one says that America is corrupt. No American says we are corrupt. Unfortunately, our media has dominated our feelings, and that's why we have that approach. Now, regarding research, I fully understand and I'm aware of that, and I have talked about that to my own faculty members several times, that ethics has to be observed. You mentioned about those who are publishing journals and how they behave. Very much correct. I know personally such cases which you did not name, but I know such cases. And I also know that how many of the professors in this country and in America, not just here, have done maybe 1% or 2% of the work, but their name appears as first author or second author. And since it's done by a white man, no one cares. Done by a Pakistani, we always talk about it. I'm not justifying again. I'm saying both are wrong. And this is ground reality. But this can be changed. How? We begin from somewhere. This center is one such effort to begin from somewhere. If those who join in this center in research, in their contribution to ideas, maintain an ethical standard, then that seed will bring fruit one day. This is Allah's promise. It's not what I am saying. It's His promise. But the only thing is, we need to put the seed, we need to take one step forward and create an example of our own. We don't have to follow others. And I can assure you, inshallah, in this center, we are not going to be having just cronies around us, people who are supporting each other. I welcome most strong criticism from my students. My students know me, and I do not hesitate in criticizing them either for anything which I think is unfair. So we believe that we will be, inshallah, able to meet your expectations of quality in research, and as well as fairness and impartiality in evaluation of research works submitted to our center, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Aisha Sayed has raised her hand, but let me first read a question from the chat box. In the meantime, please do not forget to mark your attendance. We have shared a link in the chat window, and also leave your feedback there. The question from Fakhra Ghafoor, I need to ask how much attention we have planned to give in science specific to astronomy and cosmology to build a correlation with the Quran. As science scholars, we need to have such coordination needed.
Jazakallah for your question. Actually, these are the areas where till recently, even the so-called quote unquote backward people were more knowledgeable than us, graduates of secular universities. I have met personally in Jamia Ashrafia about 30 years back an expert of Falakiyat who was teaching astronomy and part of syllabus. Now, we could question which books he was using. We could question what cosmic understanding was in those books. That could be a separate issue. But importance of the subject was there. And we say these madaris are very backward. They know only some controversial issues. Again, I'm not generalizing. I'm saying one experience I had. Nevertheless, you have very beautiful writings on these areas by Hussein Nasr and many others. And I have known them personally, all of them. But what we need to do is not just cosmology and astronomy or geology, but first and foremost to convince ourselves that we need a different paradigm, a different set of assumptions. This universe is not a result of a bang, not a result of a mechanical development, but a result of a planned creativity by the creator. Whatever I have in my body or around me or in vegetation is not just a matter of genetic development, biological development, but a matter of variety based on a system, a beauty. And that beauty is given by the one who is the most perfect in the whole universe, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in every discipline, we have to first work on basic assumptions and then work on the content development, subject matter. What should be the subject matter? Should subject matter be only as Einstein was doing, relativity, finding out how these waves of light go or make a curve or no curve, or how that can be useful for mankind, which means we need to create purposeful knowledge, ilm an-nafi', and that is the second step. First, trying to understand the existential knowledge, at the same time Islamic principles, and then coming up with the content that reflects what Islam wants us to do. The book of medicine by Ibn Sina does not begin with just a statement of physiology, but begins with Allah's praise and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created those things in a specific manner. So it is both technical knowledge and Islamic knowledge going together. That has to be the course of action in not only astronomy, as you mentioned, but in all fields of life, in social sciences and applied sciences.
Thank you very much. Aisha Sayyed, could you please ask your question?
Yes, thank you very much. And this has been a very insightful talk. I'd just like to add brief comments and a question. Now, our higher education system stems or evolves from an education system based on rote learning and compartmentalization. So how can we expect for it to produce innovative and learner mindsets? That would be a major challenge. And you're talking about encouraging creativity and innovation. I'd like to know that would the center welcome new ideas within Islamic perspective as well? And also another question is that why is an ummah that is born to lead not able to produce either new knowledge or thought leaders? At best, we seem to be regurgitating the works of our elders, and we are not leaders of change within the world also. So how can we work towards transformative learning? We may start with a gap analysis of fault lines at the center. Thank you.
Jazakallah khair for your very good observation and question. The concept of higher education, unfortunately, has become centers of borrowed education. Therefore, whatever is done in perhaps MIT at undergrad level or at Harvard and Stanford as graduate level, unless we try to imitate that, we think we are very backward. And that's what I said is intellectual colonization in the name of globalization. And we need to come out of that. The earlier, the better for us. Now, higher education does focus on compartmentalization. But if you recall, my emphasis was on interdisciplinary research and teaching, which means that I should not be dealing at micro level only in biology, but also how biological sciences are linked with human existence as such, society as such, environment as such. How many of the courses approved by the so-called PEC, which we teach in engineering, take care of serious environmental issues? Go to the proposed syllabi by all councils whether medical council or computing council or whatever it is. I have been dealing with these for the last 45 years. I've been in academia for over 50 years now. So all these focus on that micro research, but not macro. We are concerned about micro research to be encouraged, definitely. I do not want a person who has PhD in economics to write a book on anatomy, but I want him at least to understand what is the economics of human body, and at the same time how economics can be useful in human development and so on and so forth. Therefore, our research focus should not be blurred, should not be confined to just micro research. In my earlier response to a question, I did not mention specifically, but let me be more specific. Those universities where you have Department of Basic Sciences, where you have physics, mathematics, statistics, these are the departments that produce highest number of impact factor research papers. Go and look into their topics and their relevance with your own society or with the development, and you will be shocked to see how many are relevant. Therefore, research has to be, as I said, ilm an-nafi, relevant, and research to take care of that. Now, the last part of your question was about innovation, and you link that with the micro research. I beg to disagree with that. I think innovation can always be in any area. Macro level or micro level makes no difference. It only needs a critical mind. And you believe it or not, but I believe that the Quran and Sunnah make a critical mind, which we have never tried to understand or try to apply. We think that these are like books of other religions which are based on dogma. There's no dogma in Islam. Islam from day one is for critical approach, tafakkur, tahqiq, tafaqquh, and so on and so forth. So the innovative approach shall be always appreciated. And as someone said earlier, that if you have a new idea, then usually the consortiums of those who claim to control research publications, they neglect for a while, then they use that for their own name. Such cases are there, but at the same time, I'm very hopeful that we can make a better beginning, we can set an example, and we can help overcoming all those shortcomings with which we are suffering.
Thank you very much. We have almost come to the end of our session, and there are still many questions, but because of limited time,
Can we
cannot.
request them to email those questions?
Yes,
and
you can email.
Honor to
Yeah.
answer through email. I'm always available for any assistance I can provide to my friends, and I'll be actually obliged if I get those questions on email.
Yes, you can send us an email. It's there on your screen, globalcenterpiece@gmail.com. You can also reach us through Facebook, facebook.com/globalcenterpiece. And you can also send your questions to us through Facebook. I should remind you that we have sent you a link to give your feedback and mark your attendance. Now I would request Professor Anis Ahmed to give his concluding remarks and also close this session with the dua.
Jazakallah khair. I am overwhelmed by the questions that were raised, and throughout my life, I have been always looking for questions and search together for answers. I don't have any fixed answers for any questions, but I believe that these questions lead me to think, and those who raise questions help me in finding out better ways of resolving those issues. So I really appreciate your very well thought questions. And I believe that in future also your participation and your very active and interactive role will help us in making our objectives more easy to be achieved. To conclude, all I want to share with you is that we need to come out from the colonial mindset, the imperialist approach of the former rulers of Muslim countries who have left a heritage of theirs which has been embraced by us with pride. We need to come out of that. We must have our own heritage discovered in the Quran and Sunnah, and our Turas, our heritage and knowledge, which is available. And based on that, come up with new knowledge. Unless we come up with new knowledge, we will not be able to change our society. And this new knowledge has to be, in my humble understanding, founded on ethical values. I wish we could have a webinar on what are those universal values that Islam has provided, on which we can build a new paradigm of knowledge. And I have thought and worked on this for quite some time. And perhaps that can be shared with our interested scholars, and their comments can help me also in crystallizing my own ideas. So I hope that our approach of ethicalization of social sciences as well as applied sciences is a new approach and a practical approach. It's not just hypothetical, doable, but it can be doable only when you who have joined in this webinar, if you come forward, if you come up with your research proposals, collaborative research, and then center can inshallah assist you in that. Lastly, I believe that we in Pakistan and in neighboring countries, Afghanistan, Iran, and Malaysia and others, have a huge resource of young scholars. But due to various reasons, they have not been able to come forward. They have not been encouraged in a proper way. We are waiting for your researches, for your contribution, and we hope that with our mutual collaboration, we can set a new example in academia where fairness, quality, and relevance dominate, and where we are not subject to any biases, any grouping, politicking, affiliations with groups. I have all my life been attached with academic institutions with no political or any affiliations that bias your mind. And I believe that it's only academic honesty and fairness which makes you a true researcher. So I believe that with your collaboration and cooperation, we should be able to make some positive steps towards enhancement of research and development in our own country and in neighboring countries, friendly countries, because we are part of Muslim Ummah. We are not just a nation. And I hope that you will take interest in future activities as well and come up with your own contribution by way of some seminars offered by you. I want to listen to young scholars on these issues and learn from them. And the center will be more than glad to welcome your proposals. So I thank all of you and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that whatever we have discussed today, if that helps in making our lives, our society, and our country a peaceful and loving place, a secure place, a place where its objective of creation as an Islamic society and state is also fulfilled, then may Allah accept all our efforts and reward us in this month of Ramadan. And if something has transpired which is based on selfishness, misguidance, may Allah remove that from our memory and allow us only to preserve those ideas which are aligned with what the Quran Sunnah has said. That is our only source of guidance, and that alone can save us from condemnation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I pray for all of you, for your health, for your academic endeavors, for your voluntarily joining us in this program, and inshallah joining in future programs with more enthusiasm. May Allah bless you all and protect you from the COVID-19 and other hazards we have around, and give you opportunity to make a very positive contribution in academia with an Islamic perspective. May Allah bless you all. Wa'adam bil alameen, and thank you very much.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you everybody for participating, and thanks very much to Dr. Atiq Zafar and Professor Anis Ahmed. We wish you all a very happy Eid, and we pray that Allah keeps us safe from this pandemic. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Fi hafzillah.